good morning. Depending on where you are in the world, it might be good evening or midday but anyway, greetings, that's probably a better word. Did a DNA background music on a song that I wrote, and I thought I would answer some questions about it. They wanted to know the process, what did I do, and what did I use, that kind of thing. So totally unscripted. I'll try to kind of get you oriented. Essentially, you've got genomes and DNA and that whole arena there. And whenever they sample the DNA and they analyze it, it's printed out in a text format. And a fellow at Algorithmic Arts was nice enough to write a piece of software and give it away that basically takes this data and transposes or converts it to MIDI, M-I-D-A. That's a computer interface for digital music. It allows electronic keyboards and various things to communicate with each other as well as a PC. You can be playing along on your keyboard, and you can send a MIDI. I don't know what the word, a communication through the MIDI. You can send a signal or a command, and it can cause your keyboard to change to a different voicing, that kind of thing. So it's very useful. I used to play a lot of guitar. I have one that is rigged up to read the frequency of the note that I'm playing and make it into a MIDI pulse or a MIDI command signal, so that I can record my guitar as MIDI. So if I wanted to do a string section in a song, I can pull out my keyboard, or I can hook this guitar up, and the notes that I play are converted to MIDI, and then I can assign that to strings or timpanis or whatever I want my guitar playing to come out as. So anyway, that's kind of what MIDI is. So MIDI uses 128 note references or names, and they're just numbered 0 through 127. I can't think of the software that I've seen that has 1 through 128. They're usually 0 to 127. So anyway, the data comes in, and much like the algorithms that people have used to play their names, the data is converted to a numeric sequence. If it goes out of range of the 128 characters, then it's transposed down so that it falls within. And that's the only real manipulation that's done, is the transposing to get it down into a key that MIDI uses. So anyway, that's the history of it. The program that I use is called MIDI. That's BIO and then the number 2 and then MIDI. I apologize that I can't get it larger. When he wrote it, it was just, this needs to work, and he wasn't thinking about being able to do full screen and all of that. So hopefully you can see enough on your monitor there that you can follow along, kind of get the idea what this does. So anyway, you have various controls here, and I'll go into that in just a second here. So you can find MIDI data, or not MIDI data, excuse me. You can find the DNA sequencing and the genomes and all that in various places on the internet. There's a government repository that has a bunch of them. A little bit of creative searching, and you can find what you're looking for. I will try to find one that's fairly easy to get to the data and post it in the description. But for now, when you get this program, you can use some samples that they provide with the program. And it's a simple matter of just saying open. And like you got here, you got Bactrod, beta DNA, beta globin, and then they got they're abbreviated names. I don't know what they are, but I'll just pick one. Let's try beta glob here and see what it. Okay, so that is beta globin, and it's from Homo sapiens. So that's a sequence that's from us, the family of man. And all of this is comments and things that is not relevant to the music itself. But if you'll notice, there's a tilde at the beginning and the end of this sequence. And as long as those tildes are there, it's highlighted, and that is the data. You can see VHLTP, then there's a bracket, EEKSAVTALW bracket GK. And so it's just a long string of the values that are in the DNA data. So you can play this just as it is by hitting this MIDI button right here, and it won't play unless you have the tildes in there. So if you import something from another program and it won't play, all you got to do is highlight the data with your mouse, and it will automatically put the tilde at each end and make it where you can play it. And I'll try to demonstrate that for you in a bit here. So here's your MIDI play right here, and you can take a listen to this, and this is just for default settings. Okay, and that's the voices that you use are general MIDI sounds, and they're on every computer, and you can select whatever you want it to be. Now I changed it to honky tonk piano. Whoop, that's protein. So let's see here. Let's change that one to tubular bells, just so we got it here. So you can take a listen. And that's just with default settings, picking the voicing. So if I take these radio buttons here, you can switch to DNA, and it'll give you a different output because it's using a different algorithm. Okay, and then you got one that's set up for both, uses both the protein and DNA. And I don't pretend to know the inner workings of what he's doing to come up with this conversion, but I know that you can do it under DNA, protein, or both. We'll take a listen here. Okay, and that's set at a tempo of 40. You can speed this up or slow it down. I'll set it to 20. And you can also adjust the note duration. You can say quarter note, half note, duration. So let's try a half note. Okay, let's try a quarter note, and we'll do it on full so that the note rings until the next note. So I think you can hear already it's sounding musical. The one thing I want to bring your attention to is you have some choices. If you hit this little button in the middle here called Map, it brings up a map of the where the values from the data are being assigned in MIDI, and it's a plot of where these notes have places to land. And you can set it to a major scale so that everything is snapped or moved to land in a major scale. And you can see it changed the way the map is set up. Then you've got the minor scale, you got a pentatonic scale, you got a whole tone scale, fifths, and octaves, major, triad, minimal, and all that. You got chromatic, C major, kite. I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to do some research on that. But you've got your choices. So I'm going to set this one to chromatic, and we'll go back and listen. Let's get that off of both and go to maybe D and A. I'm going to bring this back up to say 40 on the tempo. And then you've got the protein one. Okay, so that gives you an idea. And you have really, there's no regard for phrasing at all in this. It's just, each note is a quarter note and it is held until the next note plays at whatever tempo you set. But what you're interested in is getting the melody, the note pattern into your DAW, okay? So once you've got it, whatever you want it to be as far as the mapping and all that, then you can save it by hitting this little keyboard button over here, and you pick, and I'll just do this here, and we'll put this as test. I'll change the name to test, and we'll put it on my desktop. My desktop's pretty cluttered, but we'll put it there. Okay, so the next piece will be done in a DAW, and so you need to have a DAW if you're going to do this. Any kind of a MIDI editor will accomplish what you want, but if you want to make some nice sounding music, I highly recommend you get a DAW. There's a free version of Studio One. Cakewalk by BandLab is absolutely free. Reaper has an unlimited trial, and it's very robust, full-featured. It has some of the best noise filtering I've ever seen in any DAW. But anyway, get yourself a free DAW, and then I'm going to use Cakewalk for the rest of this, so I have to switch over to my ASIO drivers and all that. So I'll end this one, and then I'll just paste the next section at the end of it. So anyway, part 2's coming. Okay, part 2. This is how to take the MIDI file that you created with Bio to MIDI and put it to use in your DAW. All DAWs pretty much have the same function as far as, editing and building a multi-track song. So this is not a tutorial on how to use Cakewalk in particular, but if I do a process like file open, you can be assured that in Studio One or Reaper or Logic Pro, GarageBand, whatever you're using, there is a way to open a file and import MIDI data. They all can do that, so I'm not going to get into the steps involved. I'm just going to do it to show you how it works. So before you bring in MIDI data, you need to have a place to put it. And so I will get a synthesizer out here. And this one is that I'm using is DSK Ethereal. And I can just show you quickly. Essentially, you have 3 layers. Each one is a sound, and it's customizable as far as attack, delay, sustain, and release. And you can fine-tune panning and all of that, and the level for each module. But it's a freebie, and they have a list of presets that they've come up with that are really pretty good. And so I'll just pick one. Let's I don't know, let's go with voices. We'll just go with that one, just because we got to pick something. Okay, now we have a we have a MIDI file. We have something to make the sound come out. So now let's import that, and we'll just import, excuse me, I need to have this track selected, file, import, and we'll go to MIDI, and we're looking for test on my desktop. Test MIDI. Okay, so now we'll go into the MIDI editor, and you can see, I'll zoom it out here a bit. You can see that it's been brought in as note data into my DAW, and if I tap on one of these, produces a sound out through the ethereal pad. So now the task is to make this musical. And I think I'll slow this down to about 80 here and just take a listen, see how it sounds on its own. So that's just raw, without anything being done to it at all, except for the voicing, and that can make a difference. So let me just try a different voice, see if it sounds any different to you. We'll try Distant Stars. Something happened in there. I'm not sure what it was. It's causing it to change patches right at that note there. Let's try it again. Interesting. I've never seen it do that before. Somehow I've gotten some note data in there. Anyway, I won't troubleshoot it. I tried changing it back to just the stars, and the minute I hit play, it jumps. And jumps back to the other. That is odd. I've never had that happen. Anyway, we've got some data here. So now the trick is making it sound more musical. If what we have isn't good enough, you can. So let's pick a section here just to. Let's work with the first 4. And I'll loop this. And I hear this kind of like you got some bass notes down here, and then you got a melody up here. And let's just see what I can do here. Okay, so the first thing I hear, and I try not to move these around if I can avoid it. I never change the value of the note because you lose the melody that's in there. Otherwise, why bother with MIDI data? Just write a song. But you can extend these notes out so that they overlap and kind of create chords. And this may sound like crap. We got 2 notes that are right together here, so that's probably not a good idea. But we have these notes are a ways apart. Well, let's make it a chord there, and maybe this one. See what we get. Yeah, that sound is not the best here. Let me see if I can get rid of that sound. Event list. Right here. I'll get rid of these. These are bank change commands. We just get rid of these, because that's what's causing our grief. There's quite a few in there. Yeah, I've never encountered this before. I must be something I did maybe wrong, if that's the right word. Now it should hold distant stars. Now let's hear it. I think I want a little reverb on that, so we'll send it into a reverb chamber, and I think for giggles we'll put a little chorusing on it. I like this one, it's pretty good. We'll leave it at default. And let's see what we got. So what I did here, just so you can see, is I loaded a plug-in. Excuse me. It's like having a rack of hardware in an analog studio, only it's software. And so This is taking the place of what you would go down at the guitar shop and buy. This takes the place of it. So there's echoes and flangers and, you know, all kinds of things, auto pans. So anyway, this kind of thickens the sound. It's a chorusing. You're probably familiar with it. Let's hear that. I think this bass tone needs to carry out a little bit. Let's hear what that does. So let's play around with those bass tones and just extend those out, because that sounded kind of nice to me. Let me just keep that bass tone carrying through in a lot of places. And let's just, let's see here. Where can we put some harmonies? There's a minor third there. Let's extend that out to there. These half steps don't sound good together, so we'll avoid that. That's a whole tone there. That wouldn't be too good. This one, major third, might be all right. Let's extend that out, make a tone out of it. And maybe that include that. Okay, I just took some educated guesses. Let's see what it sounds like now. So that sounds kind of eerie almost. There's some discord, but there's some pretty interesting ones in there too. I'll change this sound to something like Nexus Tears. Let's try that and see what it sounds like. Get that back off screen. That didn't sound real good there. Let's try it without that one. Okay, so that is the process. I was not intending to try and come up with a finished product that just, you know, the next big thing, but I just wanted to show you how it's done. A lot of times, I like to take the data and maybe like this baseline I was talking about. You can highlight these and copy them, and I'll just do it just to show you. So we'll copy that data. Now let's add another synth in here. And let's see, uncategorized MPS. MPS is a pretty nice one. And let's see, we'll set this to music box, AC bass. That's probably a good one there. That's a preset. Now we can go over here and paste this in to track 5. And starting at 1, here we go. Now the whole thing is offset because of where I pasted it at, so I can move it. Let me get back, get it all selected again. Sorry for the sounds. There we go. Now I can go back to this one and take this bass line out. Now I put the bass line on another sound, and that just gives you a little more interest. Looks like I put the bass line too low. I'm gonna have to transpose it up. Where'd it go? Well, that's odd. I managed to delete it. So let's go back here and put it back in. Okay, that's what I wanted. And I want to, now let's hear it. Okay, so let's go back to MPS. Let's pick a different voice. Soundscape. Kind of like that sound. Anyway, so you get the idea. So the whole process is you go out on the internet and you find you some DNA sequencing data or genomes. I would love to get my hands on the raw data from the DNA testing I had done so I could play songs that come from me. But instead, right now I'm just, whatever I can get my hands on, I'm playing around with it. Excuse me. And keep in mind, I used a chromatic scale to keep these notes true to what they actually are in the data. It's you've got those options to make them in the major mode or in the minor pentatonic or the natural minor. So you don't have to try and work with chromatics. It can be a job to get it to sound good, chromatics, because they will oftentimes have a half step apart. And that's appropriate in a lead sequence a lot of times, but for making chords, half steps can be a problem. But anyway, that's the process. You get your data, you put it into bio to MIDI, you select however you want it to be translated, then you save that MIDI file, and then you go to your DAW, you import the data and work with it until you get it sounding like what you want. So it's not rocket science. Probably the hardest part is learning a DAW if you haven't used one. I highly recommend that you get yourself, spend a little time and learn how to use a DAW. You will not regret it. For some people, it's an overwhelming task, but what I tell them is this, it's a multi-track recorder. It's all a DAW is. It's a multi-track recorder, but it has a console so that you can route your signals just like a guy would do at a live concert, running sound, or a mix engineer would be. But you have tracks, and each track is the same. So you only have to learn one track. Once you've learned one track, what you know about that track applies to the rest of them. There's a bus section. You learn about the bus, and then the rest are buses. So you got a couple of areas to learn there, and you can start making music right away. How to use a track view and editing data, you got to learn. And it's not hard, especially in Cakewalk, because you got this smart tool right here. And if you notice, when I get in certain places, it changes. The cursor changes. It's going to, like, if I just get the crosshairs, I can move the note up and down, back and forward on the timeline. If I get here, it changes, and now I can adjust the velocity of the note, which a lot of times translates to volume. But like a piano, you can hit a key hard or you can hit it soft, and they sound different. Well, that gives you access to that. If I get on the end here, now I can change where the note starts, or I can change how long the note rings out, all with one tool. But I also have all of these other tools available. I can mute that note by using a mute. And what's nice is, like, I don't have to keep running up here. I can just hit the letter T on my keyboard, and now these are all available to me. So I can use this to get to the mute key. And now this note won't play. If I go back to the smart tool, well, it plays because, but it won't play if, see, it didn't play. So anyway, there's just lots of good reasons to, okay, so now it's unmuted. There's lots of good reasons to get a DAW and learn how to use it. It's, you think about driving a car down the road, that's about as complex as you can get. You're constantly evaluating speed and estimated time to get to a certain point down the highway. You're going to get ready to make a turn. You got to remember to give your signal. You got to ease off on the gas and slow the vehicle down. You got to be ready for the brakes. And you're estimating how much speed you're going to need to make that turn without flipping over. All of these calculations running through your head while you're driving a car. And yet we do that like we sit in our living room watching television. Well, working with the DAW is the same. You have to learn a few things, but once you learn that, you're on your way. So if you learn the basic editing skills, you can go as deep into this as you want to go. You can get really involved with your patches and routing and bussing and all of that, or you can keep it simple, just put some reverb on the channel you're working with. Anyway, it's not in a tutorial on DAWs, but for this process, you need a DAW or something that you can edit the MIDI and assign it to the voice that you want. And to be able to do multiple sounds is kind of nice, because you can take the same data and use different instruments to build a small orchestra. So anyway, that's about the way it goes. It's not rocket science. Takes a little effort, but the effort is worth it in my opinion. I hope this is helpful. Thanks for watching.